Just three ordinary guys trying to understand the crazy world around them. We don't have all the answers, but we've got all the questions. You're listening to Just Add Bourbon with Jimmy, JD, and Brad.
Welcome, everybody, to the Just Add Bourbon Podcast. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr.
I'm Brad Broaddus.
And I'm JD Dammer.
And it is another beautiful Sunday evening here in the hills of Eastern Kentucky. All kinds of good stuff to talk about. And JD, every Sunday before we come into the show, I kind of think about how we're going to start the show. And last week I made the mistake of asking JD what he did that weekend. And so I'm a little afraid this week to start the show that way. But I will say that the title of that show, JD, got us a bunch of downloads.
Well, I'll be honest with you. This weekend might have been more exciting than last weekend.
Oh, my God.
No, I'm lying. I hope I never surpassed last weekend.
I said, and Brad, we're glad to have you back. We missed you last week. We gave you a lot of grief on the show last week, but we are glad that you're back.
Well, I'm glad to be here, gentlemen.
Actually, I had a good friend of mine that don't even know Brad. Was like, Lance really done a good job. And Lance did do a good job, by the way. He really did. I was impressed with him. But she was like, tell Brad I missed him. Actually, she said, don't tell Brad, but I did miss him. Well, I was like, Brad don't even know you, but okay.
Well, I actually had somebody, too, that doesn't know Brad that said, man, where was Brad? Same thing. Said Lance did a great job, and because he really did. I don't know what I expected. I mean, I know he does that, for school or whatever, but, I mean, he really did. I thought he did a fine job, and love to have him back on here again sometime. Yeah. So,
cool
with
kid,
all of us. Good kid. So, JD, I do want to start the show, though, with you. Was at a ball game the other night, and
hurt my feelings.
I'm sitting there with a group of people, and I get this notice on my phone, and it's a Facebook post. JD tagged me in, and I look, and it was a picture of JD sitting in the stands, and nobody was sitting beside him.
Had all his friends there with him, didn't he?
And JD said, you're a troll when you come to a ball game in a small town and nobody sits with you. And I laughed, and I was like, JD, come over here and sit with me, man. And he took a picture of me sitting over there, and that is my Just Add Bourbon co-host sitting 15 feet from me. So, JD.
So if you're going to tell a story, let's tell the whole story. Because I got there way early, and I was sitting in my seat, and Amy and Jimmy don't walk by, and guess what Amy does? Hey, JD, and waves at me. Guess what Jimmy Don does? Nose high, eyes forward, and rock and rolling. Goes, sets down. Now, Jimmy Don might have been a little bit hurt over the lightning crashes thing, but this really, really cut me deep.
And if I'm being totally honest, I did see you there, and I turned my head and walked straight by. I was like, I have to talk to him every Sunday. I don't want to sit with him at a ball game. And two, he gets on Facebook all the time and starts wars over Trump or whatever the topic is that week that he comes up with. He comes up with something good and trolls everybody, gets everybody tore all to pieces, which I do enjoy reading. in all sincerity, I always enjoy that. But we had some fun. I did take a picture of myself with my nose in the air and send it to JD.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I don't know what you speak of, JD. Yeah. But
good ball games, though.
Good ball games, man. Got the district tournament coming up this week. Our Cardinals, both men and women, are the number one seeds in the prospective district. And
shout out Trey James.
Trey James, kid from here, he's just a junior.
Yeah.
Broke the all-time block record in the state of Kentucky with 717 block shots. Can you believe that? That's just stupid. 717 block shots.
It's because I didn't play basketball in high school.
Right. JD, well,
Lunch League.
Trey's not vertically challenged like the rest of us.
He's about 8'6".
Yeah, he's a big old boy. And he broke the single season shot record last year. He broke the single season and then broke the, which, I mean, I don't know how many blocks he had in that game, JD. I mean, I swear he blocked 20 shots.
He's just a junior, right?
He's a junior. Yeah. I mean, so he's going to put that bad boy out of reach, I think. Somebody
for a while.
I think he broke, maybe a kid from your neck of the woods, Brad, from Madison Central, I think, held the record. And then Trey broke it. So, but district tournament starts this week. I'm looking forward to it.
I could have choked Jack Ward, though. So, Trey blocks a shot. The other team goes back down the court. No, we go back down the court, and Trey gets fouled and is going to the line, and Jack's like, Trey James just broke the state record for blocked shots. now go shoot your free throws, man.
And Trey had missed a free throw all year. Yeah. Missed them both. Yeah. He missed both foul shots.
Thanks, Jack, for getting in his head right before he goes to the free throw line.
But I'm excited because, I mean, people that listen to this that are out of the area probably don't care. But we haven't had a basketball team. The girls have gone to the state tournament a few times, but we haven't had a men's basketball team go to the state tournament since the 80s. Yeah. And this team has a legitimate shot, to actually go to the state tournament. The top two teams in the region, they beat over the last 2 weeks. They beat both those teams. So could be fun. All right, so the other thing we do want to, talk about, because, I think I'm the star of the show, and the Welldagum Podcast, our buddy Josh, has his show, and he saved the best for last. And I was on the Welldagum Podcast. Dropped this past week, right? Of course I know. I listened to it immediately as soon as it dropped. I like to hear myself talk. But that was a lot of fun. I do want to give a shout out to Josh. It was a fun time. Had a hard time actually getting up with him, with my schedule to actually do it. But I enjoyed it. And then Josh has a gift for photoshopping pictures. And the one that he did of me, for those who didn't see, was this guy holding like a machine gun. It was my head with some shades on. And in the background, there were these tanks. And you had a picture of Brad in one and JD in the other. And then Josh, his crazy face on the other. Now, JD threw a little shade my way on Facebook. And he did edit and say that he might be a little bit jealous. But, that picture was pretty awesome. And I did order a copy to hang over my fireplace, just FYI.
Like, that picture's so good, I wouldn't mind having one myself, honestly. Like, that wasn't really, like, I didn't know that was Pauly Shore if the movie poster was in the Army now, right?
Yeah, well, at first I thought, well, that's like, Schwarzenegger or something cool. It's Pauly Shore. I'll take it. It still looked cool.
Well, see, because Brad went on the show, and he put Brad's head on a dress, which was obviously fitting, right?
Right.
And then I went on the Welldagum Podcast, and I did a story about deer hunting. So he put my head on a deer hunting story. Then you got on there and talked about water, and you was in the Army or something. I was like, what is this connection? I was like, Jimmy John is just sending him money to put him on a cool picture. That's all that is. But now I know, because in the Army now, Pauly Shore was a water irrigation specialist.
Yeah.
So water filtration specialist.
I did not know that.
So, honestly, I didn't know that either.
That's where the water thing
now, but I had no idea. I just thought he thought I was the coolest man on the planet. And a big,
he put your head on Pauly Shore, so yeah, whatever. It wasn't that cool now.
All right, well, speaking of badasses, did you guys watch the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight last night?
No, I didn't.
I didn't watch it. I was watching the Lifetime play-by-play on Twitter.
I watched it. It was $80.
Yeah, that's why I didn't watch it.
And which I actually messaged Brad and I said, "Hey, I'm going to watch this fight if you want to come up." And he's like, "Dude, I'm getting ready to crash." So
I told him I was going to bed and I wasn't going to come up there, and then I sit there and wait until the fight was over to go to bed.
I would have called you, JD. I didn't figure you were even home. Like I said, we live different lives.
I wasn't.
Yeah. But, that was a really hyped up fight. And the first fight was a 12-round war. A lot of people thought Fury won that first fight. But in the 12th round, and this is what I guess I really realized. I didn't watch the fight. But Wilder knocked him cold. Mm-hmm. And the ref goes over to count, and all of a sudden his eyes pop open, and he gets up and then takes it to Wilder and about knocked him out in the 12th round. Well, that fight last night was brutal.
Yeah.
Fury wore him out. There was no fight to that. And, if you see Fury, he's this big, tall, white dude. He's from over in Europe somewhere. Heavy guy. He came in weighing like 273 pounds. Wilder's just ripped up black dude from Alabama. Bad man. He had 41 wins, 40 by KO. That's a bad man.
Yeah.
And Fury brutalized him. And the thing that I took from it, though, is you remember back in the 90s when, I guess it was the 90s, it was when Tyson and Holyfield and Lewis, like a big time heavyweight fight.
Holyfield, yeah.
And last night was that. Yeah. It was in Vegas at the MGM. And are you guys boxing fans at all?
Yeah. Well, I'm more of a UFC guy now at this point. But, growing up, of course, I love Tyson, man. I remember when he knocked Spinks through the ropes and all that stuff. Like, and I watched. I was actually our first night in Kentucky when we moved to Kentucky was when when Douglas beat Tyson. So that was like my first time in Kentucky. But yeah, growing up, always a boxing fan. Still like it, but I feel like I don't like the Mayweathers of the world. I'm not a Floyd Mayweather fan. These guys that want to point you to death. I like people who fight. If I pay $80, I want to see some people get knocked out. I mean, that's just me. I think going into this fight, I think everybody knows that Fury was a better technical boxer than Wilder. But, the thing about a brawler like Wilder, one shot, and, this game's over.
Yeah, it's the eraser, right? I mean, but, the heavyweights have always been, it was a big deal. Like, I'm like you. I don't like the lower weight classes where they point you to death. Mayweather was just
Runs.
Pop, move. Yeah. These guys fought.
Right.
And, I mean, it was, I don't know. It was cool, though, because I remember in the 90s watching those Tyson fights when Lewis would fight, Riddick Bowe. I mean, you had all those guys, man, in that heavyweight division. George Foreman even. You had all those guys in that heavyweight division, and it was exciting. You and your buddies would get together, and you'd buy a couple cases of beer or a keg, and everybody would pitch in $20 and get the fight. And I hadn't done that in years. Now, Brett and I would watch UFC fights. We used to do that all the time. But I couldn't tell you the last time. I did buy. I think we bought the when Mayweather and Conor McGregor fought, just because we bought that and watched it. But I don't know of the pay-per-view boxing match that I paid for, especially $80 that I've paid for, and I was really hyped up. The promotion on that fight was really good, and it got me pumped, and I was like, I got to watch this.
I don't know if you guys, the Ruiz guy, have you seen him, the heavyweight? They showed him, I can't remember who he knocked out, but it showed him hitting him, and that guy's soul walked out of him. And I was like, yeah, I know how that feels. That's not a good feel. Are you a boxing fan, Brad?
I was. When I was younger, like you said, the Tyson, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, all those guys. And then when the UFC got big, it just wasn't as exciting, as it once was.
Right.
Once you were seeing people kick each other in the head, it kind of changed it to where, if somebody's just in there, especially the smaller guys, the heavyweights is still fun because you don't know, you're one punch away from somebody getting knocked out. It's a lot more exciting. But yeah, I've not watched boxing in years.
Yeah, well, it was fun, and like I said, I enjoyed it. I was into it. The preliminary fight, because I went out with Amy and the girls for Ashton's birthday, and then got home pretty late, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to watch. I mean, I saw it was $80. I almost didn't, and I was like, God, I just really want to watch this. So I went ahead and got it. And
Josh messaged me, and he was like, JD, you want to come over and watch the fight? I was like, yeah, I may be able to work it out. I got some plans, but we may be able to work it out. He's like, oh, never mind. It's $80. I was like, yeah, never mind. I ain't coming over. I ain't trying to watch it that hard.
Yeah. The other thing, sports-related wise, was, we talked a little bit on the show last week, the Daytona 500. And it ended up getting rained out that day, and they ran it on Monday. And so I'd come home from work, and I sat down, and I turned it on. And good race, And at the end, though, at the very end, Ryan Newman had one of the most brutal wrecks that I think I've ever seen. And when I first saw it, the way that he turned into the wall, I thought, God, that is eerily similar to the way that Dale Earnhardt hit that wall. What I didn't realize until they showed the replay was that wasn't even the worst of it. The soft barrier actually probably did its job, and, the new harnesses and all that probably did its job. While he's flipping, he gets T-boned in the driver's side. And this cat's doing 200 miles an hour. I mean, just the wreck happened real quick. He's flipping. The dude T-bones him in the side. And I thought Newman was dead. Like, I thought he was dead. And I told Amy, Amy was sitting over on the couch, and I said, my God. I said, did you see that? He's lucky if he's alive. And then they, bring up the black curtain around him. Jeff Gordon, before they're being real, careful about what they say. And I thought, he's dead. And the next day, they show a picture of him walking out of the hospital with his daughters. And I was like, my God. I mean, the safety in NASCAR has come a long way since Dale Sr. passed.
Yeah, not to go backwards, but did you see the picture of Wilder the next day? Or like this morning?
Like, no, I didn't see the picture.
Facebook or iPhone is not going to recognize that face at all.
He got busted up pretty good.
Yeah, the Newman wreck. Yeah, I hate that happening, man. But that's part of the sport.
It's part of it.
These guys T-boning him at 200 miles an hour. If you're going 200 miles an hour, I mean, you got no chance of stopping. If you do stop, you're going to cause a huge wreck.
Yeah. So I just, thank God Ryan Newman walked out okay, and that was a great picture to see because I really did. When I saw the wreck, I thought, oh God, he's dead. But anyway, all right, so let's move on to maybe some Kentucky news. Something else we talked about, JD, on the show last week is the House in the state of Kentucky. The bill for medical marijuana had gotten out of committee.
Yep.
The House voted on it this week, and it passed.
Big time.
That's a great step forward for medical marijuana in Kentucky.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean, that's something that's not only from a economic standpoint, but from humanity's standpoint, it's been a black eye for us as far as I'm concerned. Glad to see it move forward in the Senate. It's long overdue. This bill, you're not going to be able to smoke marijuana at this point. Right now it's going to be either liquid or pill form. But it's going to bring a lot of relief to a lot of people who need it. And, it's about time we get on board. So now we need to make sure our senators are voting to pass this bill.
Brad, have you heard anything as far as from a Senate standpoint? Have you heard anything of how that might go in the Senate?
I have not. No. But I'm with you guys. I mean, I think that, the recreational is a whole different conversation. But as far as the medical, you got a lot of people that are having to either go other places or do other treatments that are more harmful long-term to not break the law. So I think definitely from a medical standpoint that it's a step in the right direction.
JD, do you know, from the Senate standpoint, like what?
I think it's going to pass. And I don't have anything I can cite for that reason, but that's just my feeling that I think the problem was getting it out of committee. I think once it got out of committee, it was going to pass because they were so tough on the bill being written in the right way without, being smokeless and what medical analysis that you had to have to get the medicinal marijuana. So I think it's going to pass.
Is it strictly like pill and liquid, or like the edibles, the different things that you can get? Is that an option for people too? Or I know you can't smoke it. Like you can't buy it and smoke it.
I think at this point you can't have it like as a in plant form. So you have to have a prescription for it. You have to go to a pharmacy to have them fill your prescription.
So it would actually be like going to a pharmacy. There's not going to be like a medical marijuana shop pop up where they sell these different like brownies and cookies and edibles, things of that nature.
Yeah.
I was reading through the bill, Brad, and I was looking at the kind of the list of the medical things, and one of them was nausea. And on the lighter side of things, I was like, man, I'm kind of feeling sick to my stomach right now. I don't know.
Same.
But no, I think it's a good move forward for our state. I hope, and again, we talked about this a little bit last week too, Brad, was the sports gambling bill is not having as much luck getting through. And you've got a bunch of people. This is something I want to ask you all, because this is something I don't know that I realized, is that whoever's in control, I guess, of the House gets to determine what bills actually go up for a vote. And I thought, I don't know, maybe again, this is just my ignorance, but that doesn't make any sense to me. But if there's a bill, because they said like the sports gambling bill, if it was put up for a vote in the House, would pass. But the Republicans won't put it up for a vote because it's not technically their idea.
Well, it's got to come out of committee.
Is that the deal? It's got to come out of the committee first?
Yeah, right.
And they're trying to attach a bunch of different things to it to keep it from going through.
So what you have is people playing politics. You're playing their party instead of being, our leaders. They don't want Bashir to have a win, is what it is. When it comes down to it, they want to say, well, this Democrat shortened the pension by $80 million, or whatever it is, and he couldn't even get the bill passed. Well, you couldn't get the bill passed because you won't get off your hands and do something, And it's the same thing you see on the federal level. You've seen the Republicans and Donald Trump accuse the House of the same thing. Give us a bill that's worth putting through, And it's politics because we don't want. And Mitch McConnell said the same thing when Obama was in. We're not going to let him succeed. We're going to stop him at every turn. We're not going to let him pass these bills. So then what happens when the Republican gets in? The Democrats set up roadblocks. And it's the same thing on the state level. Go ahead, Brad.
And I think one thing, that I would like to see, and I don't know that that's the case with this particular bill, But I would like to see these bills just be one thing, right? Like you see that all the time in the House when this stuff gets pushed through at a national level and at the state level, where there's a bill that's something that most people would probably get behind, but then they throw all this little stuff in there, right. And then that gives the other side an opportunity to say, well, no, we don't want it because this, and this. Why don't we throw one thing at a time, vote on it? I mean, you're talking about you're there representing the constituents. If the people that want you there and a majority of the people in the House want that, then that's the direction you need to go.
Oh, that's what you're going to see. You'll see this pop back up, this time of year, it's election year. And you're going to see these debates as they get closer to election time. Why you didn't vote for this bill that would have gave our military people bigger equipment, better equipment? Yeah, because it also had attached to it, killing babies with forklifts. It had nothing to do with the bill. It didn't have nothing to do with the military getting the aid that they needed. But it was loaded down with so much fat on the back end of it, I couldn't vote for the bill. And so that's what you get into all the time, which is a shame. But also, I don't know, we may be getting a little bit off subject here, but Bill Clinton started doing what we call line item vetoes. You remember these? Which also is bad for democracy because we don't want a king. We don't want somebody going through these bills and marking out what they don't want. When they pass through the Senate, those things should become law, right? So what Bill Clinton was doing was going through and vetoing parts of the bill. And so, it's just tough, man. Like, I'm with you, Brad. Like, let's stop fattening these bills up. Let's have a bill. And we got time, man. We got the time. Make the bill if you need to kill babies with forklifts, then make a bill about that. And we'll vote on it. We'll either do it or not.
And I know when I heard that.
That's the worst possible example of all time. I
wasn't going to say anything, but no, when I heard that, I was like, if there's a bill, then just put it to a vote. Right. It doesn't matter whose idea it is. If I have an idea and I come in and say, okay, Brad and JD, I want to do this, let's put it to a vote, and you guys say no, then you say no. If you say yes, then you say yes. If there's a bill, and I don't know, maybe that doesn't make any sense, but it shouldn't be who's in control. Yeah. It's just, because I heard something like the Republicans said, like, especially with the sports gambling bill, it was along the line of, everybody in our party has to be for it for us to bring the bill forward. So if you've got 50 people and 2 of them are against it, then you can't bring the bill forward? That just don't make any sense to me. That's what's wrong with our government, right? I mean, doing stuff like that just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Right, that's putting party in front of people, man.
Yeah.
Politics in front of people. It's not. We need statesmen. We don't need people playing politics. Like, we need our teachers' pension fund us, right? Like, I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican does. I don't care. It just needs to be done. Whatever.
I agree, Brad. I mean, I said on here last week that there's some stuff that Brashear, like with the pension, I don't agree with how he's going about the pension. I actually agree with Bevan a whole lot more on how he went about it. But I am for the sports gambling bill and especially the medical marijuana bill. I'm definitely for that. And I just think our leaders should get off their hind ends and do the right thing and just put things forward without all this pork. So let's talk about our maybe potential future leaders. Did we watch the Democratic debate this past week?
Oh, my goodness.
Like, at first, Brad, I was like, this is a couple hours of my life I'm never going to get back. And then I thought, well, how entertaining. I thought, what a train wreck, man. I said, it was. So I just want to get your all's thoughts just from, and Brad, we'll start with you, just kind of like watching that debate, what kind of some highlights for you, some things that you liked, some things you thought were stupid. Just the floor is yours.
Well, Mr. Bloomberg absolutely got destroyed. I mean, it was horrible. And the only thing I could think when you're sitting there watching him is you're thinking, this guy is, what's he worth? Like $30 billion, something stupid. And his life, you could imagine what his life is like where, you've got whatever, golden slippers and whatever, and everybody around you, no matter what you say, just goes along with you. And I'm thinking, that is probably the only time that anybody has ever talked to him like that in his entire life. And you could tell that he couldn't take it. He didn't know how to react. It's a little different than running for mayor. Now, granted, I know you're talking about a big, New York being a big place, but still, you could tell that he was out of his zone. Now, what I even found even more hilarious about the thing is, why was he on stage? Because he didn't have to do the debate, because he's the one person running for president that has enough money that they will let him continue to go along, because they know how much money that he could feed into the DNC. And he has all of that money to go to the TV stations for ads. So here's one thing, and I obviously, I'm not saying they work together as a team on here, but one thing that was probably pretty universal for all the candidates, including Trump, is because Bloomberg has that much money to spend on ads, both sides want him gone. Right? The Democrats don't want him there. I'm talking about the Democratic candidates. They don't want him there. Right. Trump doesn't want him there, because he can suck up all the airtime. So the Democrats needed to destroy him, but they had to get him on stage. And I think probably one of the main things that got him on stage was Trump calling him out about the debates and talking about him having to stand on a box, right? Sounds mean. Everybody goes, well, that's mean. He's going to stand on a box. But I want to ask you this for everybody listening. When you tuned into the debate, what was the very first thing that you looked at on stage?
I looked to see if he was standing on a box, I swear.
I missed that tweet, so I didn't know.
So he comes out.
Steps up.
he comes out to the debate stage because he was challenged on whether he could debate or whether he couldn't, whatever. He gets on stage, and Elizabeth Warren absolutely
murdered him right there on stage.
Lays into him right there, because that's what they had to do. And then you had it was kind of weird, the setup. You had Mayor Pete and Biden, who it was almost kind of like, okay, we need to try to make it to the 12th round. We're going to hide over here, pop up when we have to, and we're going to stay out of this and let this be the Destroy Bloomberg show. Now, the one positive note for Bloomberg that I did enjoy is when he asked Bernie, when he said, "You're the most famous socialist in America, and you're a millionaire with 3 houses." Did I miss something? I thought that was a great point, and I thought that was his only shining moment. And aside from that, I thought it was. I've watched a lot of debates, and I thought that was, horrible. Like, usually people will have a bad moment or two. It was just like from the get-go, the cameras started rolling, and he was getting beat to death. What do y'all think?
Well, a lot of the same, man. I thought it was just an absolute bloodbath. Jimmy texted me Wednesday. He was like, "Are you watching this debate?" And I was like, "No, I'm got stuff going on." So I watched it Thursday night, and it was as bad as Jimmy Don said it was.
I felt sorry for Bloomberg there at one point, because Warren was just tearing him apart.
Jimmy Don was like, "Well, that was quick. Bloomberg's candidate's over before he got started." And man, I felt sorry for the guy, really. But I was like you, Brad. Like, you could tell he was not used to being talked to that way. Like, he was probably red from his shoulder blades up, But what are you going to do, man? Everybody's just throwing stuff. And then they asked him about the NDAs and stuff, and he was like, "Nope, those NDAs are going to stay right where they're at," And so then I thought one of the moments that nobody's talking about, Bloomberg was bad, but, I thought Amy Klobuchar and Buttigieg's exchange was pretty good too. And I thought Klobuchar really showed a lot of spine. And she said, "What do you think? I'm stupid? You call me stupid?"
Yeah, and she got a hard time from the Latino reporter there about forgetting the Mexican president's name. She got a really hard time,
which I thought was silly, because how many times? How many people do we know? Imagine being a state senator or a federal senator for a state, and how many people you run in contact with. Sometimes, guys, you're going to forget a name or two. It's not. And I thought that they was making a way bigger issue out of it than what it should have been.
Did you think Mayor Pete's strategy was interesting? Because he didn't really go on the attack against Biden or even Warren or Bloomberg. He was going after Klobuchar.
Yeah.
And do you think that he's trying to clear her out of the race?
I think, to me, he's almost like he's climbing that totem pole. He's climbing that next peg, and she's the next one in the way. That's kind of how I've seen it.
Because they consider them the more moderate Democrats, right? And maybe even Biden, too.
So those three are really splitting each other's votes a lot, So that's you're probably right.
So he clears her out.
She's definitely the more vulnerable one of the three.
Yeah.
But I still don't like Biden's strategy, although I think his strategy is crazy. And I just don't, man, I kept on, like at the beginning of this whole thing, I was like, Biden might have a chance against Trump. He's in the middle. He may be able to pull all these independents, this and but man, he has a hard time speaking.
And then he said, was it yesterday that he said that his deceased son was the Attorney General of the United States? I mean, he's been saying some crazy stuff out here, and, the media gives him a pass on it, obviously, but not, there's a lot of pressure on these folks. They're out. But again, what's that going to be like as president? I mean, you're going to get hammered all the time. And I'm not saying everybody's going to have a gaffe here or there, but it's been some just kind of bizarre stuff that he's been saying. And I kind of feel like Mayor Pete got neutralized is when people started calling him out on what were they calling him? PowerPoint Pete, and basically just his, running around in circles, kind of like what we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I think once he got pegged as that guy, it's kind of taking a little bit of his steam.
Right. Because the one thing, I mean, you can say what you want to about Bernie, but he does have a plan, and he's not afraid to show you his plan. And if you go to Mayor Pete's website, it's like, his plan is like, we're going to make it fair. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's his plan right now. So, but as far as Bloomberg goes, man, I almost feel like, and I haven't seen the numbers since then, but I almost feel like that's the best thing that could have happened to him, really, is like, because who do you attack? You don't attack the guys. If you're about to start coaching right now, and I promise you're not going to jump on the kid who can't do anything. You're going to jump on the person you expect something from. And I almost feel like this way with the debate, you're going to attack who you're threatened by. Because they know he has the resources. And even though this is his first debate and it's late February, this cat's got the resources to win this thing, really, if it comes down to it. But I think he needs to definitely stay away from Clinton as a running
Something
mate.
I've been surprised, though, is to have billions and billions of dollars. It seems like he could do better as far as his persuasion game and how he is portraying himself in the media. Because the way, even like some of the billboards that they're making, everything is about a soundbite.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to ask you about the billboards.
Or a picture, and I mean, and this is not a new thing. This goes back.
I don't know if I've seen the billboard.
This goes back 100 years. You're talking Edward Bernays stuff, getting into the photo op. You got to have that one photo op. You got to have those sound bites. And everything that he does and says is so outdated. It's so separated from real everyday people.
So I'm going to ask you all this question because I don't know the answer to it. And I was going to look it up before you guys come here, actually. But on 9/11, was he the mayor of New York in 9/11, 2001?
No, that was Giuliani.
That's what I thought the whole time. But he was like, I pulled New York. I was on 9/11, I was the mayor of New York. I was like, I don't think he was. Or he may not say it exactly like that, but he definitely makes you, way he says it he leads you to believe that he was the mayor when that happened. But I thought Giuliani was the mayor.
Yeah, it was Giuliani for sure. No, and I thought it was interesting. Like one of the billboards, there's just a bunch of these random billboards out there. Like I want to know who he's got running his media campaign. One of them said Donald Trump likes his steak burnt. Underneath it says Mike Bloomberg likes his medium rare. It's billboards like that.
What?
Yeah, it's just weird stuff, man. I don't know. I mean, and I don't get it. Now, I did think Warren kind of stood out there the other night because she went after him so hard. And then she took the opportunity to defend Klobuchar, and it's clear that Warren is a smart lady.
Right.
I just don't think that she's going to have the backing to get her where she wants to be. Now, there's a couple things on Bernie I thought was interesting, and it might have been, Brad might have sent this to me, then I saw it. It was something that Jimmy Woods, the actor, posted, and he's a big right-wing guy. And he was talking about Bernie, and Bernie wants to raise everybody's, the minimum wage to like $15. But then they asked Bernie how he's going to pay for, all his stuff, and that did you see that, JD?
Yeah, I seen that meme, and that's actually, though, if you go and look at Bernie's tax plan. That means
that's not off. That's
no, it's way off.
I saw that. I didn't know, and I saw
because
that.
I was like, man, you're right. That don't make no sense. So I went and looked at it. I was like, okay, that was just a guy trying to smash Bernie's all that.
Yeah. Okay.
But he did say he wanted to raise taxes on everybody above 30,000, right?
29,000. Everybody above 29,000, taxes will go up.
Yeah, and so the way that the math was done on there is if it was like 52% taxes on anybody above 29,000, and then if you took the math out, it went back to like 750.
Right, but the only time, if you look at his actual plan, the people make $10 million more annually pay 52% tax. So it's not the guy that makes 29,000.
So it's not a flat 52% for everybody above 29. All right, that makes sense.
There's brackets, and you keep going.
Bracket it out. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Bernie. Okay. Sure. He won the Nevada Caucus. Who was second? Was it? No, it was Biden and Pete. Right, we're real close for second. I know I saw something that Pete.
He first or last, man. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Ricky Bobby. I know that Pete was saying he was contesting the results. Saying that, well, I guess, that he was close to second and whatever. So Biden apparently showed pretty well. But the question is, are they going to screw Bernie again? Do you think they're trying to screw Bernie again? Do you think they're going to try to keep him from being the Democratic nominee?
Absolutely. And you all know I don't support Bernie in any way, right? But I think that he's getting hosed again for the second time. Now it'll be interesting to see if he actually fights or tries to do anything about it, because he didn't last time. But Bernie is not the guy that they want, right? He's obviously not the guy that they want, and he's showing well everywhere. He does have a large grassroots movement behind him, and here's the only reason that I want to see Bernie get the nomination for the Democratic Party is because I think that it is going to pull back a veil bipartisan where people are going to see what has been done to outsiders, not just recently with Trump, but forever. Because what's going to happen is you're already seeing, it came out the other day, well, Bernie's, now he's a Russian agent, right? Russia's trying to help Bernie win the election. And you wait and see if I'm wrong, you all can laugh at me on the episode and call me stupid. But if Bernie wins the nomination or gets real close, then I would expect to see women come out of the woodwork that in 1974, Bernie grabbed my butt going through the airport, and you'll see all of these people coming out. The same treatment they've given everybody forever that was not the establishment picks. Right. And I feel like that he is, and I don't think he can win if he's nominated, because I think it is too far left, at least especially on the financial side for most people. But I don't think that's who they want, and I think they will absolutely try to destroy him if he gets the nomination. What do you think, JD?
No, I think it's something that you said a long time ago about nominees or even candidates or even presidents or senators being selected, not elected. And I feel like you're seeing that in front of your face. If this man goes to the convention with the most delegates and the most votes, and they give somebody else a nomination, is that democracy? And this isn't a Democratic Party thing. This is, both tickets have the same exact setup to where they can pick their nominee. But why would you want to pick somebody else who hasn't beat the guy that's got... Why would you not want to pick the guy with the most votes or the most delegates coming into the convention? Because he's not your guy. That's all there is, because he's not your guy. But I want the guy who stands the best chance of winning. And I've said this, and you guys know I've said this. I'm glad to see the debate take the turn it took, and these guys really get after each other in debate and let the strongest make it to the end, right? Because that's the opposite of what we had last time. We had Hillary Clinton and Bernie, and they basically handed the nomination to Hillary at the convention with the superdelegates. But how could you say, well, we got rules in place and these are the rules? Yeah, but this guy outperformed everybody else in the field. If Bernie goes into the convention, they're saying it's going to be 47%. against 8 candidates. That's much different if he goes in there against one candidate. He's only got 45, right? But if he goes in there with 45 against 8 other people, that means they're getting 13, 14% apiece. And there's a chance that he's not going to be the nomination or the nominee. And to me, that's not democracy. Even though he knew going in what the rules were, but to me, that's officials being selected, not elected.
And that's exactly my point with saying that about them being selected. It's a game. It's been a farce of yes, we are we're a constitutional republic. We have democratic elections. You, the people, elect these things, unless you, the people, elect the people that we want, and then we've got safeguards here because at the end of the day, you don't matter. We're going to run the show the way we want to, and I think that has been the case on both sides. Look, even for us that supported Trump, I mean, we went through this 3 or 4 years ago where he obviously had huge majority in the Republican Party, and you're going to the convention thinking, well, what are they going to do to try to screw him out of the candidacy? So.
Yeah, because it's clearly not who they wanted. With the Republican Party didn't want Trump, but he cleared everybody out of the way. And I feel like Bernie's going to get hosed too. I mean, I really do. And if they do this to Bernie this time, if they do that to him, how can they? I mean, really, because they're going to have to do it in the wide open. I mean, they're going to have to go to that convention and basically screw him.
And I think they absolutely will. I think that's where we're at right now, that the veil has been pulled back. I mean, think about how many more things are in the wide open now that weren't before. I mean, I think we're to that point because what happens, okay, if you've got Trump that was elected as an outsider, and if you have Bernie come up and get through the Democratic Party as an outsider, then you're talking about just game over as far as because not just because of those two, but then going forward, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. And once the people figure out how to get their voices out there and how to overcome these things and how to be loud, then it's game over.
And I think that's what Elizabeth Warren's message has been. I'm the candidate we can all get behind. And I think that message is to the delegates. Not to the people, but to the delegates.
Absolutely.
I'm the person who's been a Democrat all these years. We can all get behind me. I'll lead the Democratic Party. And Bernie's is, Mama Pop, send me $20 and we're going to run this thing. See what's got left in the tank. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to get the nomination. At the end of the day, I think he's going to get the nomination.
So I'm going to ask you this question because it was asked of me last night.
Okay.
And they asked, I was at the mall and I was sitting there, Starbucks with the kids. And girls wanted some Starbucks. So I was sitting there and this girl we all know comes up to me and says, well, she's a Democrat, I think. She said, well, who's JD like? And I was like, why do you care who JD likes? He's no sense. No, I'm kidding. I didn't say that. But so after watching that debate, because, you're clearly the liberal of the three of us, like even after watching that debate the other night, do you have a candidate that's really kind of standing out to you at this point?
This is going to sound crazy because we're two different types of Democrat. But I like Bernie. I like his ideals on education. I like his ideals on Medicare for all. I like that. I like the one-payer system. I know it's not perfect, but I think it's better than what we have. I think it's better than, all the bankruptcies we have over medical issues. And I like Amy Klobuchar. Like, she's really impressed me the last couple of weeks in she understands the policies and I like her feistiness, man. So, yeah, those would be the two. I like that she's in the middle road and she's shown that she can work across the aisle with Republicans and get things done. And those are the two people I like.
Cool. All right, so we've spent a little time on the Democrats here, so let's spend a little time on Trump. Just a couple of things real quick. One, he fired McGuire. Was it this week?
Yeah.
This week he fired him. He's the head of the intelligence agency, right?
Right.
Now, best I could tell, and you might be able to give me a little more detail, JD, is that what you're reading is that Trump got mad because he came in and said that Russia was going to try to interfere in the election again.
Right.
And that Trump got mad because he didn't want
to hear that.
He didn't want to hear that or didn't want the House people to know it.
Right.
I have, I guess my thoughts on why Trump would feel that way. But do you think that was a bad firing? Do you think it was doesn't matter? He can fire and hire who he wants?
Right. So I think it's more of a character issue, again, with Trump, for me, because it seems like every time anybody tells him something he doesn't want to hear, they're gone. And so one of the good qualities, there's two main qualities of a leader that I like. One is tell people what to do and be surprised by the results. Let them figure out how it gets done. The second one is when I'm wrong, you need to tell me. If there's something going on, even if I don't like it, I didn't know about it. And that second one doesn't seem to be like Trump. It goes back to Vindman. During Vindman's testimony of the impeachment, and I know we were all impeachment burned out, but he said, I'm not here to say whether he's innocent or guilty. I'm just here to tell you the facts. What I know, here's what it is. So we know what happened with Vindman. He was fired. And this guy comes up and says, hey, you might not like this, or whoever might not like this, but here's what we believe is going on. As an intelligence officer, here's what I know, and here's why I know it. I don't like that. Now you're gone. So to me, I just hate to see that he's showing this consistent behavior of anybody that speaks something he don't want to hear, they seem to be gone.
Brad, do you think it could be, and again, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because I really don't have an opinion. That's one of those things I don't necessarily have an opinion on, whether he should hire or fire or whatever. I get what you're saying. I really do. I understand what you're saying. But do you think it could be, Brad, that Trump, you come out and say this to the people in the House, the people who just impeached him, that they made, because you're already seeing it anyway. You're already seeing the Russian narrative pop back up now. Do you think it could be that he's like, look, don't give them the ammo? And maybe it's not Trump's place to even say that to that guy. It doesn't matter. Do you think it could be that, look, maybe that's true, but I don't want them to know that information because the next thing they're going to do is try to impeach me for it again or something along that line?
I don't know. What I would be interested is actually, because these things happen, and really the only thing we know about it is the rumors that come out, like, Washington Post or New York Times or somebody will have a story and say, somebody close to the situation or whatever. But you don't even really know what exactly the cause was. One of the other things was, they said that somebody directly under that guy was leaking stuff to Adam Schiff. I don't know what the case is. Who knows what's going on. I don't have any faith in when these stories come out with any of if it's the New York Times or Fox News or what, I don't have any faith in them unless it's actually coming from, a spokesperson for such and such said this and this and this is what's happened. But other than that, I don't really have a
Jay,
strong
I'll ask you that same question. Do you
way.
think that could be it? I mean, that he's that paranoid? I mean, do you think... Because my question... I guess the question for me is you appoint these people. This guy clearly knew how to do the job or he wouldn't have been appointed to begin with. Do you think that's a possibility that Trump could be that paranoid?
Well, the problem with that scenario is that what he said was they're getting involved in the Democratic primaries trying to get Bernie elected because they feel like Bernie is the most beatable out of those candidates. And so that wouldn't really play into the scenario where, they're trying to help Trump necessarily. They're trying to help Trump in a indirect way. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't think that, their ability to impeach him through that intelligence wouldn't stand up, right?
Because I did read something that Jake Tapper had tweeted that, he had talked to an intelligence, officer, and they said it didn't really go as far as to say that they were trying to help Trump. They like Trump because he's a deal maker, but it fell short of actually saying they were like trying to help him. Now, that was something Jake Tapper from CNN. I saw a tweet. I just like read over it real quick, but I think that'll be an interesting thing to watch kind of going forward is, do they really start trying to hammer this Russian narrative again? Because, we've heard that for 3 years.
And you notice that the thing I thought interesting about the Bernie, that coming out about that's when I sent you all that the other day, was because I thought the timing was interesting that they dropped that right before these people were going to vote.
Right.
Yeah. So, interesting. All right. So the other thing with Trump, and this wasn't on our list, but I'm just kind of interested to know what you guys think about this particular issue. Is Trump got a lot of beef, or a lot of, not beef, kickback over the pardons that he issued. And I just was really interested to know what you guys think about presidential pardons. And so, to me, everybody's like, they're all criminals, right? Everybody that a president pardons for the most case is usually a criminal and usually did something wrong. And they all do it. Every single one of them pardons somebody. And we talked about this with Bevan a little bit, from the statewide standpoint. JD, did it bother you that Trump pardoned some of the people that he did, or?
The only pardon that he's really done that really bothers me is when he stepped into the military side and pardoned those guys that were tried by a military tribunal and found guilty. Didn't like that. I thought that was something that past presidents have done. That's a new president that he's setting, which I think is dangerous because you know how I am about presidential overreach. Honestly, if a president, and I said this about, Governor Bevan too, if a president is going to pardon, I would like to see him pardoned during his first term. Because if the kickback is that bad, if the blowback is that bad, then the people's voices can be heard in the election box, right? So, I know I seen it was the Blagovich guy that he pardoned, and I don't really know, man. I'm not that caught up on it, but the president does have that right to do that. Okay, so as long as he does it in his first term, I have much less problem with it than he would have done this reaching out into the second term.
I understand people's arguments on pardons. Because like you said, we had the same discussion with Bevan. There was some, I know I obviously didn't agree with I never can say his name right. Blago.
Blagovich guy.
Yeah. He was actually governor when I lived in Chicago. I was in Illinois at the time when he was there. But there's been a lot of people that's been making a big deal about that one specifically.
That's the only one I've seen, yeah.
But, if you go back, there has been bipartisan support, people on both sides that were saying that was insane that he got, was it 14 or 17 years? I think he spent, 7? For something that we have a number of politicians that have done that didn't spend any time. And even Eric Holder came out and said he thought that was way extreme. So I didn't have an issue with that one. But I know the one thing that we talked about when we were talking about the Bevins pardons was, like you said, do them, if you do them before an election, then if people don't agree with them, they have a chance to vote for you or not vote for you. Well, we got an election coming up. So if that is a big enough issue for some people, then they can make that choice. So I don't have, because I think the pardons should not go away. When it was, when that was originally written, I think it was Hamilton maybe, it was specifically about having a safeguard that through all the systems, if something happens, that the president can pardon somebody. And I think that there's been a lot of cases, you hear about the big names or the people like that are controversial, but there's also been a lot of people that have who's the woman? It was Martin Luther King's niece was kind of representing her and pushing to have her pardoned. But you've got a lot of people who have spent a lot of time for things that shouldn't be there. So as far as the pardons are concerned, I don't have an issue with it.
Even, not to defend Bevan at all, but, some of his pardons were legit pardons too. Like, there were people who have cleaned up in prison or through drug court or whatever. They end up pardoning their sentences. So he didn't, it wasn't all bad, but and like you said, we always hear about the bad stuff that gets pardoned, right? Like, I understand that because that's what sells. That's what the clickbait, whatever. But I still stand beside my position. I like, doing them before elections. I like, so we know where you're standing. We know what kind of person you are. I don't like this. I'm a lame duck. You can't re-elect me anyway, so I don't care.
I got a week left in office.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a great answer. I mean, I think that's a really good, clean way to look at it. And I agree with you 100% about that. So, a couple things. So I want to touch on a couple more topics. The first one being the Boy Scouts filed for bankruptcy this past week. Now, I know very little about this story, okay? I know that they're in a bunch of lawsuits. Most of the time when people file bankruptcy, it's to kind of stop those, so that they can't go forward. At that time, I'm sure they have to deal with them down the road. The Boy Scouts is an institution that's been around for years and years and years. And from what I understand about these lawsuits, it's pretty shady, molesting children, doing all these different things. What's your all's take? Brad, I guess, Brad, we'll start with you on this. What's your take on the whole Boy Scout filing bankruptcy deal? And just the Boy Scouts in general, the whole mess.
Well, it's surprising that this hasn't got more attention than it has until now. And it's really still not getting a ton of attention right now. some of the mainstream media started writing articles, back in the spring of last year, talking about a lot of these lawsuits with the Boy Scouts. Basically all, child molestation stuff. And they would write an article about it, but I never really saw it or heard it about anywhere. But you can find tons of almost every mainstream, and it's like they write these articles. So if somebody calls them out on later and says, "Well, why didn't you cover this?" They'll have plausible deniability. Say, "Oh yeah, well we did on April 13th. We wrote this article." Right. See, but they don't ever push that stuff to the top. Right. That stuff's not trending, so you don't know about it. I knew there were a lot of lawsuits. I didn't realize how bad it was. You're thinking, okay, well, they've got some lawsuit. Man, there might be 20 people that are suing them for this. The last count that I saw was over 12,000 children.
What?
12,000. And I think it was 8,000 of these, whatever you call them, the leaders, the den leaders, the people in the Boy Scouts that were being accused of this. So kind of being coupled with that is, you had some changes in recent years to where they pushed to have homosexuals to bring them in as leaders. Okay? Look, this isn't a gay thing. I don't want a straight male being in a tent with my daughters on a camping excursion.
Right.
Right? So you've got tons and tons and tons of lawsuits, and it looks like there's a lot of things that they've been hiding over the years. Like even information as far as maybe they knew some people that were predators that ended up getting back into the organization. And at one time, when some of this stuff was like, this has been going on for a long time, but I didn't even realize until digging in this a little bit that Rex Tillerson was over the Boy Scouts at one time. Did you all know that?
No, I didn't know that.
So it looks like to me, and I don't know all of the legal ins and outs of how the bankruptcy works, but it looks to me like they're getting ready they were going to go under anyway with all these lawsuits. And they're basically filing for bankruptcy to stop the bleeding and to try to get this stuff to go away. I don't know beyond that, what the ramifications are, or if there's anything they can do legally. Jimmy Don, do you know?
I mean, the lawsuits will still go on, but it'll just kind of stop them from proceeding any further at this time. That's the main thing what people will do. Like in most bankruptcy cases are financial, of course, and this one is too. But most people will file bankruptcy just to get everybody off their back for the time being and try to get it organized.
So I'm going to go into this a little deeper if y'all don't care. Like, so I'm a father. I got two boys. And I got a girl too, so I guess she could be in the Boy Scouts too. But anyway, like, should I be able to sue the Boy Scouts if I put my kid in that position? If I'm the one who said you can go out with that scoutmaster or whatever? Like, do you feel like you should be able to, should there be recourse against that organization if you give your okay for your kid to go?
If that's who they're putting in charge.
But you're still saying it's okay to go with that guy, even if it's not like a surprise he's in charge. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, if you're in the Boy Scouts, it's been historically one of the most trusted organizations of where people would send their kids.
Right.
So, I mean, if you send your kid to summer camp, and there's an adult there as a chaperone, you're not giving them permission to have sex with your kid.
Sure.
You're sending them to a place where you trust that adults
be adults.
And that they've been vetted properly and that they're not necessarily pedophiles.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So,
yeah, there's definitely a legal, you have a legal right there because you are sending your child, in my opinion, you're sending your child with someone you're thinking the organization has vetted their people, that you're not sending them into the lion's den, so to speak.
But I almost feel like at 12,000 lawsuits, I mean, there comes a point where you got to say, okay, maybe they're not doing such a great job.
Again, any organization, no matter what you do, and you're hiring thousands of people, you're gonna get some freak jobs that slip in the cracks here and there. That's going to happen. Absolutely. But to your point, over 12,000 kids are molested, and we're just now to the point where the public even knows about it. So since all these started happening, how many people have signed their kids up, have sent them off, whatever? And I know we've had a number of discussions over the past 6 months about these different organizations, from the Epsteins, from all this different stuff here. But in regards to places that you have thought that you could trust your kids, are we starting to see a pattern?
Yeah, like the Catholic Church too. I mean, with the priests molesting kids too. And I think, from our perspective, when we were kids, growing up doing Boy Scouts, the pack leader or whatever was generally our dad or some kid you know's dad. And I think probably in these bigger cities, there's probably cases where that's not the case, that there's somebody that's, I don't know if these guys get paid or not, but, if they're donating their time, so to speak. And, it's different for us here because it was always our parents. And most of the time, if I went, all the dads went and, everybody was there. So I think our perspective on it was probably a little, skewed because of where we live.
That's true.
And these things happen, and you hear it all the time. And the one thing people will say is if it is the Boy Scouts or if it's a youth group or whatever it is, if it's at the, the priest, the whoever, and the first thing people say is, well, I can't believe that. That is the last person that I thought would harm a child. Well, that is exactly why the predators go to those positions, because it is the people let their guard down.
Well.
And again, obviously most priests and most youth leaders and most Boy Scouts are, I'm sure, great people. I'm not saying everybody that does that is a pervert, but the perverts are going to gravitate towards those places. Number one, that they're going to be trusted with people's children. And most importantly, aside from access, is quantity. Where are you going to go if you like little kids and you want to be around little kids? Well, you're going to go somewhere where there's a lot of little kids, where you're going to be alone with them, where you go, the parents are going to trust to go around, and this keeps happening and popping up in different organizations.
So my uncle actually runs a day camp, like a summer camp for little boys who are about to be molested.
Jeez. I thought you were getting ready to say something real serious there. I was like, oh, he's going to lay some heavy knowledge down on us here.
He says the pay's terrible, but the benefits are great.
Jesus, oh my gosh.
Brad right now is like, really, man?
This is Brad, let me say this since you're here. I said last week jokingly that JD and I learned that, we didn't need you. We clearly need you, because that's what he would do all the time. He would do that. What's wrong with you?
That's actually a Anthony Jeselnik joke. I'm not going to take credit for that one.
No, that's funny. You're crazy, I swear. But no, it is sad, though, that it's sad that we even have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
The Boy Scouts. And then you think about the church and, and with the Catholic priests and all those things that, have been done. It's just sad that we even have to have that conversation. So let's talk about another, I don't know, and I think a story that has been maybe kept from the public at the level that it's really at, and it's something that we've talked about, and that's that coronavirus. Seems like it's a little bigger deal than what people were letting on. I mean, you had a second doctor die the other day that was, I guess kind of originally involved. And I don't know if this is true or not. This may be total, something fake news that was on, Twitter. But I felt like I saw something where it said that more people have died than they're reporting. That this had actually was a much, much bigger deal than what was originally reported. JD, are you kind of feeling that same way, or you seen those same things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, China's notorious for this kind of thing. Reporting late, reporting under, what's actually going on. They refused the help of the World Health Organization for, I don't know, Brad, maybe a month and a half, after they was trying to come in there, and they was like, no, we got this. Obviously, they do not got this. One of the interesting things that's going on in the world, though, with this coronavirus is in Italy. I don't know if you guys have seen this story, but they're starting to have some deaths in Italy, but they can't find patient 0 who brought the coronavirus into Italy. And so this person could be out there still spreading this thing around to everybody, but they can't find him or her. We can't find this person.
It's scary, isn't it? I mean, Brad, it's scary to think. I mean, we've talked about that on here a little bit, that it could spread like that. And then you guys were, I don't know if, and I'll cut this out if you don't want to say this, but you were talking about something before. It was in a book.
Oh, yeah, Dean Koontz.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the book. But he talks about, a disease originating in Wuhan. Go ahead, Brad.
They call it in the book the Wuhan 400.
Yeah.
And but scary, like you're talking about Italy. Because you don't know that there's not some whack job that has this virus that set this thing off in Wuhan because that would make sense because of what they've got there. So you direct everybody's attention, well, it's here, you need to quarantine here, and then it just starts popping up everywhere. Who knows what's going on? But have you seen the weird videos showing them dragging people out of their homes in China? And that was another thought that came to mind, because I go back and forth on this. Because I've seen the reports saying there's thousands more deaths than have been reported. Thousands more cases than have been reported. And then the other side of it is with China and all the things they do, their social credit score, and basically wanting to suppress their people or suppress their voice. If you needed to go drag a bunch of people out of their homes, and you don't want it to turn into a Tiananmen Square, and you've already got the Hong Kong thing going on that's getting you bad press worldwide, what would be a better way to drag 1 million people out of their homes than to quarantine it off and use a virus? I don't know.
That's an interesting point. And again, that's a really good question.
That sounds out there, and maybe it is out there, but my point is, we're a month and a half into this thing, and there's still a whole lot more questions than there are answers. And normally, at least with a virus, whether it's the swine flu or the what, and all these different things that have kind of faded out, which I thought would be the case with this, it just keeps getting more bizarre as we go on.
I got nothing to add to that one.
No, me neither, man. I said that. It just, the more you read, the more...
The stranger it gets, man.
Yeah, it's just more peculiar. It's just, I don't know. It's crazy. All right,
so not only does Just Dad Bourbon not have all the questions, now China does.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Was there any other topics that we wanted to cover? I know we kicked in a few extras there.
Baseball season's starting out. Brad's helping out the high school team, man. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is cool. Brad is, everybody knows we've talked on here before, Brad, and that brings another topic to mind. So, the Astros, spring training starting, and then I'll finish. Brad is helping coach with the high school team. Brad was an elite pitcher in high school. I will say he was an elite pitcher.
Jimmy likes to pump me up a little bit.
Just go with it, man.
Just roll with it. Nobody knows if it's true or not. Just take it. But anyway, he's helping coach the high school team. But thank you, JD. It reminded me the Astros started spring training this week, and there's some vigilante justice about to be handed out to the Astros on the baseball field. Now, their first game was yesterday against the Nationals, and they didn't even start the actual starters. It was just the other people that are trying out for the team in spring training. I didn't see that anybody got beamed. But, JD, the over-under, right, is like 85. Yeah. 85 times that somebody from the Astros is going to get hit this year. And so, there were a lot of fans there with signs. They were actually taking the signs.
Yeah, and the memes, I seen a meme, the lady was taking these people's signs, and it said, the Astros still the first signs of the season. So I thought that was pretty good.
It might, because there's a lot. Man, the other players in baseball are really upset by this. And then you had the commissioner call the World Series trophy a hunk of metal. That really upset them. I don't know. It's just been a comedy of errors with this whole Astros thing, and they haven't brought the pain down on anybody as far as not taking the World Series trophy. And baseball has its own way of handing out justice.
Right, so that's kind of what I want to ask Brad about, because me and you didn't play a whole lot of baseball. But and Brad, you was actually a pitcher, and it seems to me that pitchers in baseball are the judges. He decides if this guy's getting hit or not, and everybody's always got the pitcher's back, it seems, from what I can tell. So, Brad, as a pitcher, like, when do you know, like, it's time to hit this cat? He's getting decked. Like when does that, is it unspoken rules? I'd like to hear.
There are a number of unspoken rules. I mean, just in normal gameplay, not, away from sign stealing or anything.
Right.
If somebody comes into second base and comes in with their cleats high, going into your second baseman or shortstop, nobody says anything about it. Nobody sees it in the stands. But the guy that slid in knows he went in high. And the team, they saw it. That guy's he's going to get a fastball in the rib cage. That's the rules. But you're protecting your people in doing that.
Right.
Right? Because it is like being armed. It's nobody wants to get hit with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Right?
No, I don't.
So,
at all. Got to hurt a little bit. I'm all right.
You'll see if somebody gets up to the box and they dig in, like, really dig their feet in, and you might see them throw them a little bow tie, give them one up and in, and if they don't move, the next one you hit them because the batter's box is yours and the plate is mine.
Right.
So if you invade the plate, I might give you a warning, give you something in, and if you don't move, I'm going to hit you. It's not a dirty play. It's not, you don't want to hurt somebody. I mean, you want to hurt them temporarily. Like, you don't want them to smile at you and walk to first base.
You want to hurt them. You don't want to injure them.
Right. But the interesting thing with baseball, and a lot of times that call comes from the dugout. Right? Like, you could be the new pitcher coming from the new team and not know what's going on, and the coach gives you the sign. Like in college, they'd give you the middle finger, and that meant you were going to smoke them.
Really?
And if you missed, because it's harder than you think, because you've got a moving target. Most people aren't going to stand there. And if you were given the sign to hit somebody and you didn't, you were going to get your head ripped off in the dugout, by the coach. They'd be fired up. But the interesting thing about baseball and retaliation is the closest thing I can compare it to is a vengeful wife. Like, do you ever do something happens, and it's like your wife went back in the Rolodex like 6 years and then brings up that thing you did a long time ago that you'd already forgot about?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if you're watching a game and you see somebody get hit with a pitch, that doesn't mean that that's something that happened today. That doesn't mean that was something that happened yesterday. That might have been from the last series that has carried over into this one, right? Because some things you can't make quite as obvious. So we're in a game, something happens, Jimmy Don's mean mugging me or doing something, and I throw at him. So the other team comes back to throw at you, and then the umps come out and they give warnings. Well, I can't throw at you again next time because they're going to throw everybody out of the game. Sometimes you still do anyway.
Right.
So we might have to hold that one till the next series. I'll put that in my pocket and we'll,
see you again.
Yeah. Right. But it is it's something that it goes on a lot, and should they throw at the Astros?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Like,
again, I know I'm usually the conservative one here on my thoughts.
I already know where this is going.
But, well, I'll take it back to something that you said. When we were having this conversation and you brought up the point, okay, well, maybe I would cheat if it was going to help to feed my family. Okay? So take the opposite end of that. You take now the guys that did not get those bonuses because the other team cheated.
Right.
They stole from your family.
Right.
You played the game
the way it's supposed to be played.
You respected the game. You played by the rules. And this person tried to take your lunch money. Absolutely going to get one in the rib cage.
All right. So over under 85. What are you taking?
85 for the season?
For the season.
I went over. They said the smart money's on over. So that's a lot of games anyway, man. I imagine you get hit, quite a bit anyway.
I think I'll take the under just because they'll start suspending people left and right if they start hitting them too much. So I think you'll get a big rash of them in the beginning of the year. They may just beat them constantly here in spring training. I mean, they may just get beat up in spring training. But I'm going to go with the under on that.
Have you seen the video of the Astro player that says Astros batters this season? He walks up and he gets behind the catcher.
But no, I mean, I think I will say this. It's probably a good thing for Major League Baseball because people are going to watch every Astros game wanting to see if something happens. It's just like in the steroids era, you wanted to watch because, Mark McGuire swelled up like a gorilla and was hitting the ball 500 feet out of the park, him and Sammy Sosa and then Bonds and all these guys, and it was fun to watch. And that's one of those things, as sick as that sounds, it's going to be fun to watch to see what happens to the Astros this year.
I mean, it's definitely interesting. Like, I'm not a baseball guy, but if they start getting beamed, I'm definitely going to do that.
I think from the standpoint of Major League Baseball itself, that and I'm sure there's a number of teams that have done similar things, right? The Astros just got caught.
Right.
But look, this is Major League Baseball. I come from a perspective as a player. I wasn't making millions of dollars to play. I just love the game, right? So that's completely different than Major League Baseball as a business. So do you think it's better for business breaking every home run record that there is, or if the leading home run hitter in the league hits 30 home runs a year? What do you think's better?
Oh, home run records going out the door.
So if 30 teams were cheating and getting signs and not getting caught, do you think Major League Baseball would care if it wasn't being called out?
No.
Which is, I think, the exact same thing with the steroids. Because the issue with the steroids was not that Major League Baseball wanted to put these guys out of the league. It was because you had the whistleblowers that started coming out.
It was just so obvious, man. They had to see it, right?
Right. So they had to act like that they were putting their foot down. But I promise you, they want, every rule in baseball over the last 30 years has been for the hitters. You look back in old school baseball, you watch old stuff, and you had these guys that were throwing 90 or 100 miles an hour. Well, the strike zone was to the letters, basically. That's hard to hit. Well, they've kept making it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And everything has been around generating hitting, which, as a business, that's what they should do. Right. That's what puts people in the stands. I'm not saying from the major league side that that's the wrong thing to do. I guess the point that I'm making is we get on sports, and because as sports lovers, we enjoy the purity of the game, we lose the fact that at the end of the day, when you get to college and the pros, that this is not a game anymore, that it is a business.
Right.
And, people talk about, well, the refs do this or these people do this and they throw games and they whatever. But what makes more sense for them as a business? If you have the NFL team and they have a big disaster in their city and they're the one that goes to the playoffs.
New Orleans.
Right. Yeah. Now, go and again, those were great teams. I'm not saying that was all a big thing, but just go back and look at the places where you have a big deal. I don't even remember. Was 9/11? Is that when the Patriots won?
Yeah, I think the Patriots won that year.
Okay, so just go back and see when there's a Cinderella type story, when there's a big deal. And I'm not saying that they control every game. That's not what I mean.
Right.
But it definitely gets pushed in that direction because that sells.
Right. Well, the same thing happens with football. As defense coordinator, it drives me crazy because I enjoy watching the football game that's 13-6 or 13-7. I like good defense. But the rules are generated, when you had Manning in the league and Brady in the league, these guys were putting all these high numbers up. It's because you couldn't breathe on the wide receivers or you couldn't touch a quarterback and because they wanted to make it exciting for fans. It's an entertainment now. It's not just the game or, keeping the value of the game where it's at. It's bringing new fans. It's keeping people excited. I'm not going to watch soccer. I don't want to watch these guys run for 90 minutes and it be 1-0. Like, it don't interest me. I'm an American. I want to see points on the board. That's what I want to see. That's why basketball's fun, right? Because they're going to score points. Like, would you want to go to a basketball game and watch them score 20 points? Oh, but they're playing great defense. Yeah, but I want to see Michael Jordan slamming at home. That's what I want to see,
So do you think, and I know obviously in football you've got the whole concussion aspect of it, which, I think it's great that they've done stuff to fix that, but it's definitely a completely different game than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So do you think that the precautions that they've taken to protect the quarterbacks is more about the concussion protocol, or do you think that that's because if Mahomes is out for 6 weeks, then people aren't tuning into that game?
No, I definitely think it's a marketing thing, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, these quarterbacks, who's the left guard for the Patriots? Anybody know? Because I don't know. I bet you everybody knows who the quarterback is, though. Because he's the face of the franchise or the face of the league for a long, long time. And that's who they market, if Tom Brady gets hurt, you're not going to watch the Patriots game because you want to tune in to watch Tom Brady slice up these defenses, right? I've seen a lot of silly Pat Ruff in the passer calls that, there's no way, like you said, 25 years ago, like they would have ate the quarterback, but now they're pulling up on the quarterback, and then, you see even the quarterback breaking the grasp of the defender because he's afraid of hitting too hard because he's going to get a foul and a penalty and all this other stuff. So it's definitely changed the game. But I definitely think it's because of the marketing and because of they want to preserve these guys to play up into the 40s.
Did you guys see last night the random guy, the Zamboni driver? I don't even know who the team was. The Canes. It was a professional hockey game, NHL game. Their goalie got hurt. They did not have a backup goalie. So the guy was at the game, watching the game, and they brought him in. He's their Zamboni driver. Brought him in, and he played goalie, and they won.
You're kidding me, man.
No.
Are you for real right now?
For real. That's a true story. It happened last night. They interviewed the guy. They brought him in. He played hockey, apparently, for like a semi-pro team or something. But
You're the Zamboni driver. You probably played hockey.
He's 42 years old.
Yeah.
They brought him in. First, as soon as he gets on the ice, they hit one right between his legs, scored. And then, the team that he was playing for, they ended up scoring like 6 goals or something like that and really helped him because there was a couple. But he made a couple of stops and, But I saw that. I don't know if y'all saw that or
That's
not.
pretty cool, yeah.
So before we finish the show up, I did want to ask JD something because when I did text him the other night when I was watching the Democratic debate, I was watching a comedy show and he texted me. And he texted me. I said, hey, are you watching the debate? And he's like, no, I'm at comedy. So I just want to know how your set went or, how that went.
So the set went good. So I can't figure out if my ex-wife is still jealous or not. Like, I know she's moved on. She's moved in with another guy. And, the kids are getting adjusted to that. But so I made a post, and I started out with telling this story. Friday during the day was Valentine's, right? And, I've been divorced 3 years now. Did you guys see the post? And
I saw it.
And so I decided I was going to, post my Valentine on Facebook, and it's the first time I've ever put anybody on Facebook on my own personal account. And, I just said, I really feel like I want to put my Valentine out there. She's been with me for a long time and I really appreciate her being there. And so my wife or my ex-wife, I don't know if she took the snap or the photo or if somebody sent it to her or what, but she texted me, goes, that's ridiculous. You have kids. I was like, what's the big deal? But in her defense, it was a picture of my right hand.
Oh, Rosie.
And so that's Brad's shaking his head again. But that's the joke I started out with, and my set was pretty good. Like it, and he got a good reception. Like everybody, it was a good time, man. Like
I didn't see the post. Amy showed it to me. My wife. Yeah,
what
she said, "Look at this. Do you do a podcast with this guy?" I was like, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." That was so funny. I thought that was classic, JD. So you actually did a joke.
Yeah, so I turned that into a joke because where she texted me, I was like, and she gets so furious that I use her in my comedy, but the more she asked me to keep her out of my comedy, the more she's going in, 100%. And she's going to be really happy about this segment of the show.
Yeah, oh yeah. So, well, I won't say her name. We love you, and it's all in good fun, right, JD? JD's like, no.
Brad, you want to take this one?
Oh, man. All right, guys. So we'll wrap this one up for this week. Of course, you can check us out on Podbean. That's where we launch from. iTunes, Spotify, We have a YouTube page, Facebook page, Twitter, and we have a real Instagram page. We'll hit that home again. Eric's killing it. Shout out to Eric. He's doing a really good job. I told him the other day, I said, it's almost like we got a real social media department behind us.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Melissa Gerald. I turned her on to the podcast, and she's eating it up.
Cool.
So she's really like, she never listened to a podcast before, ever. And I was like, check it out, see what you think. And then she was like, oh my God, I was laughing my, hind end off. I thought it was great. So shout out to Melissa. Thank you for subscribing. All you guys that are giving us the downloads. Like, this thing's really...
Yeah, and one of the things I figured out too, I'd appreciate it, give us reviews, whether it be good or bad, because the more you review, the more people it goes out to people, like on iTunes or Podbean or whatever. When you review, review us. I don't care if it's good or bad.
No, if we're doing something that we need to improve on, I want to know, man. Like with my comedy, with my podcast, whatever, as a person, I know everybody's going to say stay off Facebook, but we want to know, right? We want to be the best podcast we can be. We want to be as entertaining as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for, the people in, we got a lot of people in Australia, Canada, UK, different places listening. And, a lot of our news is obviously coming from here, but I know there's a lot going on worldwide. If there's any interesting stories that you all think is kind of in line with the stuff we talk about here, I say in line with the stuff we talk about. We're all over the place.
But she ain't the rest of the stories.
Yeah.
Anything
just send it through.
Fun. Yeah, send it to us. From myself, from JD, from Brad, no matter how bad your week's been or no matter how bad your day's going, if you just add bourbon, it'll always get a little bit better. Thanks for listening, guys. Talk to you next week.